Is this idiot actually falling for it? When Ava Sterling, the undisputed ice queen of Stanford, publicly confessed her love to a scholarship kid like me, a scrolling live comment feed suddenly appeared midair. It turned out I was nothing more than a cheap pawn used to spite her ex, a total nobody she had plucked from the crowd on a whim. Looking at the live comments, I could see everyone was waiting for me to break down in tears of gratitude and become her latest pathetic fanboy. What they didn't realize was that instead of being offended, I felt a sudden surge of pure adrenaline. If she wanted to treat my emotions like a game, then I would treat her like my personal plaything. Without a moment of hesitation, I cupped the back of Ava's head and pulled her into a hard, aggressive kiss right in front of the entire campus. In that instant, Ava went stiff with shock. The comment section went nuclear, and my real revenge was only just getting started. Ava stood there completely frozen. I wasn't finished yet. I gave her a wicked grin and nipped her lower lip with my teeth. The live feed went wild with comments. Oh my God, the female lead hasn't even kissed Ethan Thorne yet. How did this nobody get to go first? This extra has zero shame. I let out a low chuckle, thinking that if she was going to use me like a prop, I might as well charge an appearance fee. Since she was playing games with my heart, I would play with her instead. It was only fair. Ava's face turned a deep crimson, a mix of pure humiliation and burning rage. I completely ignored her murderous glare and flashed her a bright smile. Hey there, girlfriend. It's nice to officially meet you. Ava shoved me back, her expression dripping with revulsion. James Miller, you are repulsive. Let's just pretend this never. Before she could finish, a guy in a crisp, white button-down started walking toward us. Ava's voice cut off instantly. The chat feed erupted in cheers. Ethan Thorne had finally arrived on the scene. A flurry of messages popped up on the screen. Ava has been losing sleep because Ethan was flirting with some freshmen. She spent all night crying over his iMessage profile picture. Another user typed, I am literally begging you two to get back together right now. Ava kept her eyes on Ethan, but she directed her words at me. Hey babe, drive me home. I scratched the back of my neck. I thought you just said we should pretend this never happened. Ava bit her lip hard. You heard me wrong. I shrugged and interlaced my fingers with hers, giving her a playful look. Why go home? Let's go grab a hotel room instead. Ava was clearly caught off guard as she stared at me blankly. A hotel? What for? I pulled her tight against my chest, letting my hands roam over her waist before giving her long, toned thigh a firm squeeze. I gave her a suggestive smirk. Come on, baby. Do I really need to spell out for you? Ava went completely rigid in my arms. When she didn't answer, I narrowed my eyes and spoke loud enough for Ethan to hear. You aren't just messing with me, are you? Tell me you're not just using me as a human shield and that you actually want to be my girl. Ava panicked and quickly cut me off. No, don't say that. Fine, let's go. I can make it to the hotel on my own, all right. The chat went into a frenzy. What the hell is this extra thinking? Who gave him permission to touch her? Another comment appeared. What a disgusting creep. They just started dating, and he's already trying to get her into a hotel. A reply popped up. Hey, she said she was single. If they're both down for it, that's their business. Stop calling him trash and get a life. I chuckled to myself. I wasn't going to die. I was going to have some fun in a hotel room. I hailed a cab, and we headed straight to a boutique hotel downtown. Before long, we were standing side by side in front of a massive king-size bed. Ava looked completely out of it, as if she couldn't quite process how she had ended up in this situation. I didn't give her a second to think before I shoved her back on a mattress. A sharp click echoed through the room as I snapped a pair of handcuffs onto her wrists. Ava's perfectly sculpted face went blank with shock before it was flooded with a wave of fury and regret. There wasn't a trace of happiness in her eyes. But honestly, I couldn't have cared less. I traced the outline of her plush lips with my thumb before sliding a finger past them, teasing the surface of her tongue as she glared at me. The metal cuffs rattled against the headboard, creating a rhythmic clinking sound as she struggled against her restraints. It didn't take long for Ava's eyes to well up with frustrated tears. I let my hand glide down the curve of her body, a smug grin spreading across my face. Just so we're clear, my name is James Miller. I'm not that other guy you were thinking of, so make sure you don't scream the wrong name. The truth was, I had known the whole time. I didn't even need the live comments to tell me what was going on. Ava Sterling didn't have feelings for me. In fact, I doubt she had even noticed I existed before today. She had probably just scanned an elective class roster and picked a name that looked somewhat familiar, and she hadn't even managed to read it correctly. But I had been watching her from the shadows for a long time. She was a minor celebrity in her own right, the daughter of a legendary Hollywood actress and a billionaire tech mogul. She arrived on campus in a chauffeured Bentley, and I'd seen photos of her at high society galas, looking stunning in designer gowns. To me, however, she always looked like a fragile, lonely porcelain doll hidden behind all that wealth. So when a goddess like her practically threw herself at me, all those comments telling me to stay away just sounded like pure envy. As luck would have it, I've been under a massive amount of stress lately, so instead of being insulted, I actually felt somewhat grateful to her. After all, a regular guy like me would normally never stand a chance with a girl as wealthy and beautiful as the campus queen. Growing up, I used to love those underdog stories where the beautiful heiress inexplicably falls for the hard-working scholarship kid from the wrong side of the tracks. But as an adult, I realized that the only people who actually inhabit the world of girls like Ava are the wealthy elite. From the first day of freshman year, everyone at Stanford knew that Ethan Thorne and Ava Sterling were in a different league than the rest of us. They claimed to be just childhood friends, and Ethan had even once acted as a wingman for another guy by delivering a love letter to her, which Ava promptly tossed into the nearest trash can. Nobody was fooled. Until today, I had been nothing more than an extra in their high-stakes romantic drama. But after today, the script was definitely going to change. I lit a cigarette after we were finished, casting a side glance at the stunning girl lying on the bed like a piece of fine art. Ava caught my eye, and her entire body began to shake. She gripped the silk sheets so hard her knuckles turned white, her voice trembling as she hissed, "If you ever touch me again, I swear, I will make you pay for this." The live comment feed, which had been silent for hours, suddenly flooded back like a broken dam. A string of question marks filled the screen. I can't believe this is happening. She's actually tainted now. Has she lost her mind? Using her own body just to make Ethan jealous is insane. Someone immediately clapped back. Get over yourselves. Why is she dirty just for having sex? She's just using this guy as a rebound. Her heart still belongs to Ethan. Then a cynical comment popped up. Are you sure about that? Judging by the way she looks right now, she's definitely over Ethan. I looked at the dark bruises and marks I'd left on Ava's skin with a sense of grim satisfaction. I gave her a nonchalant grin. Come on, don't act like you didn't enjoy it at least a little bit. Ava bit her lip until it almost bled, whispering through her teeth, I didn't. Just get away from me. I tried to sound soothing. Relax. I have a meeting with my advisor in an hour. I don't have time for another round. I finished dressing and headed for the door, but Ava's cold voice stopped me. You're just going to leave? Aren't you forgetting something? I walked back to the bed and planted a quick kiss on her lips. Don't be like that, babe. I've got work to do. Her eyes widened in shock, her entire frame shaking with a rage that only made her look more vulnerable. She hissed through clenched teeth, I meant unlock these damn handcuffs. I acted like I just remembered pulling the key from my pocket and tossing it toward the foot of the bed. It was just out of her immediate reach, but she could get it if she really tried, or she could always call housekeeping for help. I gave her a little wave and walked out the door. I didn't reach out to Ava for the next few days, though I heard through the grapevine that she'd skipped her classes. When she finally showed up on campus again, despite the sweltering heat, she was wearing a turtleneck and long sleeves, as if she were trying to disappear. When a guy accidentally brushed against her in the hallway, she flinched and jumped back like a startled animal. A few days later during gym, I spotted her on the field filming a TikTok dance with her best friend, Hannah Brooks, doing some viral challenge with high energy. Ava was practicing some suggestive choreography while I was off to the side practicing my Tai Chi forms. Once I finished my set, I strolled over to watch her for a bit, admiring her slim waist and long legs as her skirt flared with every move she made. For a split second, her skirt flew up, revealing the same toned thighs that have been haunting my thoughts lately. Ava was so focused on the camera that she didn't notice me. The girl dancing with her was another wealthy heiress from a prominent family. Ava kept messing up the steps, and the other girl laughed at her. What happened? You were doing so well a minute ago. Why are you suddenly so clumsy? She teased her further. It's not like Ethan Thorne is watching. Actually, if he were here, you'd probably be trying way harder. Or did you see someone who spooked you? Ava told her to shut the hell up. Right then, Ethan Thorne showed up carrying a large bag of groceries, calling out with a hopeful smile. Ava, I brought you some iced coffee and some of those snacks you like. Ava didn't even look at him. A wave of awkwardness washed over Ethan's face. I pulled a slightly squashed pre-packaged muffin from my back pocket and sauntered over. Ava still didn't reach for anything, her face practically asking what right I had to even be there. I gave her a charming grin. Hey girlfriend, want me to feed you? Ava's face stiffened for a second before she suddenly snatched the muffin from my hand. To be helpful, I offered her my half-empty water bottle so she wouldn't choke. Ethan looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Since when do you eat cheap garbage like that? He spat. The live feed chimed in. Ethan is trying so hard to make up with her, but Ava is totally giving him the cold shoulder. You could tell she was actually excited to see him at first. This extra is acting so smug right now. Just wait until he realizes he's being played. He's going to look like such a clown. Honestly, it doesn't even look like she's trying to make him jealous. She looks genuinely terrified of James. Once I'd delivered the gift, I turned around and walked away without another word. My advisor had invited me to a faculty dinner that night, so I didn't have time to worry about the live feed or the drama between Ava and Ethan. When I got there, Professor Diego Harrison was laughing and chatting with a senior grad student. After a few rounds of drinks, Professor Harrison leaned in with a greasy smile. James, that paper you've been working on is excellent. Now, the Sterling family's son is in the same field, and he really needs that first author credit. You wouldn't mind letting him have it, would you? I didn't say a word. Harrison's expression soured instantly. You do want to graduate, don't you? I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. This wasn't the first time he'd tried to bully me into giving up my work for some rich donor's kid. My life had become a blur of stress with no outlet, like being held underwater by someone I couldn't see. The grad student piped up in her annoying, high-pitched voice. Oh, Professor, I'm sure James didn't mean it that way. She shoved a glass of wine into my hand and gave me a fake, sympathetic look. Come on, James. Just apologize to the professor. My stomach churned with nausea as the two of them sat there drinking and picking apart every supposed flaw in my character. Just when the atmosphere in the room felt like it was going to crush me, the door suddenly burst open. Ava Sterling appeared like an angel of vengeance in the doorway. She looked at Harrison and asked coldly, "What exactly is James's relationship with this woman?" That single question was enough to snap the tension and pull me right out of that nightmare. The cool night air helped clear the smell of alcohol from my head. Standing on a sidewalk, I tapped my phone to stop the voice recording and looked at Ava. Thanks. Ava raised an eyebrow, looking a bit smug. Don't get any ideas. I just came to return your stupid water bottle. She muttered under her breath about how she'd traveled all that way just for a cheap piece of plastic. So it was just about the bottle then? I had actually sent her the location of the dinner myself. I knew that despite her spoiled upbringing, Ava couldn't stand people who abuse their power like Harrison. I meant it when I said, seriously, thank you. Let me take you out to dinner sometime to make it up to you. She just rolled her eyes and said, don't bother. I swallowed hard and took a chance. So, do you want to head back to that hotel? Ava froze, her mouth hanging open as she wordlessly mouthed what I was certain was the word pervert. She was ready to storm off, but before she could take a step, I doubled over and started retching into a nearby trash can. Once my stomach was empty, I just slid down the side of the bin and passed out right there on the sidewalk. Somehow, Ava ended up dragging me to a hotel and checking me into a room herself. I was drifting in and out of consciousness with my head on her lap, my hands roaming blindly as I kept mumbling, thank you, over and over. Ava was blushing furiously, but for once, she didn't actually look angry. She just looked embarrassed. The live feed was calling me a shameless predator, though a few people were already starting to ship us as a couple. When I woke up the next morning, Ava was still sound asleep in the other bed, bathed in the soft glow of the early sun. I watched her for a long time before finally getting up to leave. On my way out, I couldn't resist leaning over and giving her a soft kiss on the cheek. She didn't open her eyes, but her eyelashes fluttered nervously like the wings of a trapped butterfly. We didn't talk for a few days after that. Then one morning, she was waiting for me outside my dorm, looking absolutely furious. "James Miller, did you already forget that we're supposed to be dating?" I gave her a flat look. Hard to remember when I don't even have your phone number. It was true. We hadn't even exchanged our messages yet. Ava was quiet for a moment before she snatched my phone out of my hand and typed in her contact info. When she handed it back, I saw that she'd saved her name as my girlfriend. I just stared at the screen. The live comments were as toxic as ever, telling me to stop being such a delusional extra. Wait, didn't Ethan go to class with that freshman today? Ava probably saw them. She's just using James to get back at Ethan. She's going to parade him around class just to make him jealous. Another user chimed in, saying that as soon as Ethan apologized, Ava would dump me like yesterday's trash. Then another prediction appeared, claiming Ava would eventually pressure me into giving up my PhD spot for Ethan's sake. The whole thing sounded like a bad soap opera, and I wasn't buying any of it. Sure enough, Ava asked me to go to her afternoon lecture with her. I checked my own schedule and shook my head. "Sorry, I've got my own classes to attend." Ava looked annoyed, but she didn't argue and just walked away. I texted her later to see if she wanted to grab lunch, and she actually showed up. She looked completely out of place in the cheap noodle shop I usually went to. That evening, I invited her out for some street tacos, and once again, she said yes. As we watched some distant fireworks over the city, she naturally rested her head on my shoulder. Our time together was almost sickeningly sweet. She introduced me to a world I'd never known. One night, when I'd had too much to drink, I ended up telling her everything about my childhood, from working on farms at 8 years old to finally making it to Stanford at 18. Ava just stared at me, then whispered that she wanted to spend her next birthday with me. We even made a pinky promise right then and there. One afternoon, Ava looked at me with a soft expression and said, "You know, you actually look like you're starting to enjoy life for once." In that moment, I could feel my heart skip a beat. I used to ignore the live comments, but now they were starting to get under my skin, especially the ones claiming that today was the day Ava and Ethan would finally go public. I was walking through the campus arboretum in my beat-up flip-flops, carrying a bag of takeout for my roommates. I heard the muffled sound of a guy crying, which made me stop and look toward a secluded bench. A tall, lanky guy was standing there with his head down, looking completely miserable in front of a girl. It was Ethan Thorne, and his voice was thick with emotion. "Ava, I'm so sorry. I messed up, I really did. Please stop punishing me like this. I promise I'll never even look at another girl again. Just forgive me, please." And then I saw her. The same girl who had been in my arms just last night was standing there, her expression softening with every word he said. The comments were flying now. The Ice Queen and her devoted prince. They're perfect for each other. Thank God. I was so tired of seeing that nobody act like he actually had a chance. Finally, yes, as the online crowd cheered, Ethan pulled Ava into a tight embrace. "Ava, let's just be together for real this time," he whispered. I let out a quiet sigh and thought about the mountain of research I still had to finish. I didn't have time for a pity party, so I turned to walk away. But right at that moment, Ava looked up and her eyes met mine. Ava's mouth parted as if she wanted to say something, but before she could, Ethan cupped her face and pressed his lips to hers. Ava went completely still. It looked like a couple straight out of a high-end fashion magazine. I kept walking, distancing myself from the scene. I was just a guy in a faded t-shirt and worn-out flip-flops, looking like I belonged to a different world entirely. I didn't need to hear her answer. It was written all over her face. The live feed was ecstatic. Finally, the extra is out of the picture. Look at him. He looks like a stray dog that just got kicked to the curb. Someone else joked that comparing me to a puppy was an insult to dogs. Then one lone comment appeared. Wait, why do I actually feel bad for him? But I wasn't looking for sympathy. I had my studies, a mother who supported me, and a future that was far brighter than anyone in that arboretum could imagine. Back in my room, my phone buzzed with an iMessage from Ava. It was just a string of question marks followed by, "You just walked away? You have nothing to say to me." I ignored it. I watched the typing bubbles appear and disappear for a long time. Finally, she sent another message. "I'm sorry about everything. I know you must hate me right now." I finally typed back, "What I hate most is being bothered with endless questions." Then I hit the block button. Later that night, my mom called. She told me she had finally sold our old house and scraped together enough money to help me get through my PhD abroad. "James," she said softly, "I don't understand your research, but I've heard that getting a doctorate will give you a better life. I want that for you." I felt a lump in my throat as I listened to her voice. I gripped the phone tight, trying to make sure she couldn't hear the emotion in my voice. While I worked on my thesis, I started looking into international programs. I had already reached out to a professor at Oxford who was interested in my work. The professor's research wasn't a perfect match for mine, but his reputation was stellar, making it a solid backup plan. Since I blocked her, Ava hadn't reached out. There was no reason for her to, anyway. That past month had felt like a fever dream, and now that it was over, my life was back to its normal quiet routine. I hadn't expected to see her again so soon. It started when her friend, Hannah Brooks, tracked me down in the library. She claimed their study group was short one person for a project. I tried to decline, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. "Ava's been totally MIA lately," she complained. "If you don't come, I'm going to be stuck doing this all by myself." My eyes were starting to blur from staring at data all day, so I finally gave in and agreed to help. When I showed up at the campus cafe, Ava was there. And of course, Ethan Thorne was right there next to her. Ava was slumped on a velvet sofa, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Even from across the room, she looked stunningly beautiful. For some reason, she looked completely miserable, like she was holding back a major tantrum. The second I walked into the room, Ava's eyes locked onto mine. I tried to find a quiet corner to hide in, but Ethan spotted me. He waved me over with a condescending smile. "Hey, James. Look, I'm sorry about Ava's behavior. I already apologized on her behalf the other day." I just shrugged. "Don't worry about it." I thought to myself that I'd already gotten more than enough out of the situation. Ethan gave me a look of feigned confusion. "Honestly, I have no idea why you even thought you had a chance with her." He chuckled. "Everyone knows she was just using you as a pawn to get a rise out of me. I can't tell if you're just too dim to realize how much you were embarrassing yourself, or if you were actually trying to get between us. Either way, it's a bad look. Am I right, James?" The room went dead silent as soon as the words left his mouth. Hannah quickly jumped in to change the subject, and the tension eventually started to fade. Ava and Ethan were the center of attention while I sat in a corner, nursing a drink and scrolling through my phone. I could feel someone's eyes on me the entire time. Ethan suddenly suggested we play a round of Never Have I Ever, and I knew immediately where this was headed. I was right. Every single one of his prompts was a thinly veiled jab at me. "Never have I ever been cheap," he said. "A real man puts his money where his heart is." Then he added, "Never have I ever touched a girl I didn't plan on giving future to." Finally, he looked right at me. "Never have I ever come from a broken home." I had no idea how he knew those details, unless Ava had shared our late-night drunken conversations with him. Ava frowned and nudged him. "Ethan, stop it. That's enough." Ethan gave her a sharp look that silenced her instantly, though his expression remained sour. On my way to the restroom, I overheard them arguing in the hallway. "Do you actually have feelings for him?" Ethan hissed. "Of course not." Ava snapped back. Ethan took a breath. "Then prove it." When we got back to the table, Ava pointed to one of the girls nearby and looked at me. "James, I think I found the perfect girl for you to date." She was pointing at Anna Reed, a quiet girl with glasses who was the daughter of one of the local estate managers. Ethan gave a nasty smirk. "Yeah, James, you two seem like a perfect match. You shouldn't let a girl like that get away." I sat there in silence for a few seconds. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "What's the matter? Are you still holding a candle for my girlfriend? Is that it, James?" He let out a cold laugh. "You need to learn your place. The elites stay with the elites, and townies stay with townies. It's just the way the world works. I heard someone whisper that I was probably still obsessed with Ava, and that's why I was hanging around. Ethan looked down his nose at me, his eyes full of spite. Since you lost the game, you still have to take your punishment. He leaned back and smiled. Your punishment is to give in a kiss right here in front of everyone. The room went quiet. Neither Anna nor I made a move. Ava looked away, her voice barely a whisper. Who kisses someone they just met? She looked like she was remembering our first night together, but she kept her mouth shut. I gave a small smile and looked at her. Who says people don't kiss on their first date? Before anyone could say anything else, I reached out and pulled Anna Reed into my arms. I leaned in and gave her a soft kiss right near the corner of her mouth. I held her there for a long moment, making it look from the outside like we were lost in a passionate embrace. The room erupted in cheers and catcalls. Nobody noticed when Ava's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. I finally let go of Anna and sat back down. All right, who's next? When it was my turn, I looked around the room with a smirk. Never have I ever slept with someone at this table. Without waiting for a reaction, I stood up and walked out of the house, leaving the stunned silence behind me. I walked down the driveway with my head held high, feeling like I'd just won the final level of the game. The live feed was going mental. This guy is absolutely revolting. How can he even show his face? Ethan and Ava finally get back together, and this jerk has to try and ruin it. He's such a piece of work. He clearly has zero respect for women. Ethan is so much better than him. It's obvious why Ava chose Ethan over a loser like him. A few people tried to defend me, pointing out that Ethan had been the one to start the fight. But they were quickly drowned out by people claiming that Ethan was only speaking the truth. I can't believe people are actually defending a scumbag like James. The comments were a chaotic mess, but to me, they sounded like a standing ovation. A voice called out to me from behind. It was Anna Reed, catching up to me on the sidewalk. I've had enough of that party too, she said. Mind if I walk back to campus with you? A gust of wind blew some dust into her eyes, so she took off her glasses to rub them. Without the thick frames, I realized for the first time that she was actually quite beautiful. I found myself staring at her for a second. Are you sure you want to leave like this? I asked. Won't there be trouble? She shook her head. My mom's already retired, and I'm planning on moving on from the Reed estate anyway. My phone buzzed with an iMessage from Hannah Brooks as we walked. I'm so sorry about tonight, she wrote. I had no idea Ethan was going to act like that. Please don't take it personally. They've been together forever. They have a history that's hard for anyone else to understand. The next morning, Ava Sterling called me. Her voice was as beautiful as ever, but the words coming out of her mouth were anything but. Look, I know I messed up, she said, but you had no right to take it out on Ethan like that. You really need to apologize to him for what you said at the party. I felt a grin spread across my face. Sure thing, I said, but don't you think you owe me an apology too? And I'd like you to be very sincere about it. I could hear her confusion. What is that supposed to mean? I let the silence hang for a moment before answering. Meet me at the same hotel near campus. I heard her breath hitch, and then she completely lost it. James Miller, how can you be so disgusting? Is that all you think about? You really think you can just drag any girl you want into a hotel room? And tell me the truth. Where did you go with Anna after you left that party? I just laughed. Why don't you try and guess? Ava slammed the phone down, ending the call. A few days later, I received an email from the professor I'd been talking to. He told me the PhD spot was suddenly full, but offered to refer me elsewhere. I turned him down. I knew that while hard work could change your life, people with enough power could rewrite the rules whenever they wanted. I was already prepared for this. While I worked on my applications for schools in London, I saw Ava and Ethan constantly posting photos together on Facebook. They were posting pictures from yachts, sports cars, and even hot air balloons. It looked like they were trying to convince the whole world how happy they were. Ethan somehow got my number and sent me a message request, but I just ignored it. I really didn't have time for their petty games anymore. Ava's birthday was coming up, and Hannah messaged me to ask if I was going to be there. It was clear that Hannah preferred my company over Ethan's. I thought back to the night Ava had looked at me and promised we'd spend her birthday together. But that felt like a lifetime ago. I was just about to tell Hannah I wouldn't be there when a message from Ava popped up. Stay away from my birthday party. I deleted my reply to Hannah and typed a new one. Of course I'll be there. I've already got her gift ready. The next afternoon, Hannah sent me a frantic message just as I was arriving at the airport. James, don't come, she wrote. Ethan and Ava have hired security to keep you out. They're trying to humiliate you, and Ethan is even live streaming the whole thing. The live stream was already trending on Twitter. Ethan Thorne was on camera, looking like he was doing the world a favor. We just want to use this platform to finally get this guy out of our lives, he said to the camera. He turned to Ava and asked, You don't think I'm being too hard on him, do you, babe? Not at all, Ava replied. A guy like him needs to be shown exactly where he belongs. The camera panned across a line of imposing security guards dressed in black suits. People in the comments were posting photos of me in my lab gear next to photos of Ava looking like a movie star, mocking the comparison. We look like we belong to two different species. Wow, talk about delusional, one comment read. How could he ever think a girl like Ava would want someone like him? I've never seen someone so desperate and pathetic. I bet his parents are just as trashy as he is. The airport intercom announced the final boarding call for my flight to London. I closed the app and headed toward the gate. Besides, I never had any intention of going to her party anyway. I heard my name called and turned to see Anna Reed walking toward me. It turned out she was heading to London for her master's at the same university where I'd be doing my PhD. Life has a funny way of working out sometimes. Maybe it was the excitement of leaving or the bright morning sun, but everything suddenly felt right. I pulled her close for a quick photo and posted it to Facebook with the caption, New city, new friends, new beginning. It looked like a soft launch for a relationship, but I didn't care. Back at the party, the live stream was still going. Ava was clearly distracted, her eyes constantly darting toward the entrance. She walked past the security guards and whispered, Just tell him to leave. Don't touch him. And if he has a gift, she added quickly, just take it and don't throw it away. But James Miller never showed up. The viewer count on the stream was dropping fast. People started commenting that Ethan was just making a scene and that James probably wasn't even coming. Ethan was getting desperate. He leaned in to kiss Ava, but she instinctively turned her head. Ethan froze, looked humiliated. Ava felt a wave of irritation wash over her, and she blamed it all on James. Because of that night with James, she found herself flinching whenever Ethan tried to touch her. They hadn't been intimate at all since they got back together. Trying to save face, Ava leaned in and gave Ethan a quick, chaste kiss on the corner of his mouth. Ethan took the chance and pulled her into a tight embrace, kissing her deeply as the crowd cheered. But after a few seconds, Ava couldn't take it anymore and shoved him back with all her strength. A wall of question marks flooded the live stream. Ethan's face went pale. Ava, what is wrong with you? Ava looked away, struggling to find the words. I just don't like people watching us like this. Ethan didn't look convinced, but he let it go for the sake of the audience. Ethan forced a smile for the camera. Fine, we can pick this up tonight when we're alone. His meaning was crystal clear. Later that evening, Ava went to the restroom to clear her head, and Hannah followed her inside. James isn't coming, Ava, Hannah said softly. Ava spun around, her voice shaking. What? Hannah decided not to mention she'd warned me. After the way you treated him, did you really think he was going to show up tonight? Ava's mouth opened, but she couldn't find a single word to defend herself. She had been the one to start the whole thing with her fake confession, and she'd been the one to dump him as soon as Ethan came crawling back. She hadn't even given him a real explanation. The truth was that she had never really cared about him at all. She tried to tell herself that James hadn't been serious about her either, so she didn't owe him anything. Ava kept repeating that to herself like a mantra. Late that night, Ava scrolled through the archived comments of the live stream. I know James Miller. He's a great guy. He once helped me fix a massive error in my research. There's no way he'd ever try to break up a couple. Another comment read, the guy got screwed over by his advisor and then got treated like a joke by these rich kids. I feel for him. Then, a comment from someone who actually knew me appeared. He was crazy about her, you know? It's just another case of a nice guy finishing last. That comment clearly hinted at something more, and people were begging for the full story. Ava opened the thread and read, "Remember when James's deadbeat dad showed up on campus freshman year to harass him? Ava Sterling was being dropped off, and she actually stepped in and chased the guy off. Wait, so James has had a crush on her since freshman year?" "Definitely. He used to cover for her in class and even did some of her assignments so she wouldn't fail. He practically did all her work for her. If that's not devotion, I don't know what is. I was starting to like them together, and now you're telling me it's over?" Ava felt like the world was spinning. Then a new comment appeared. "Whatever. James has already moved on. He just posted a photo with his new girlfriend on Facebook." There was a screenshot attached. Ava opened it and saw the photo I'd posted with Anna Reed. The color drained from Ava's face, and her phone nearly slipped from her shaking hands. A moment later, she bolted from the room. Ethan called after her, but she didn't even slow down. She had to find James. She didn't know why. She just knew she had to see him. As the plane climbed through the clouds, California began to disappear beneath me. My mom had transferred all her savings to my account, but I promised myself I wouldn't touch a cent of it. Between my fellowship and my research stipend, I had more than enough to live on. The future was a mystery, but I felt more hopeful than I had in years. I pulled my mask down and drifted off into a restless sleep. I found myself dreaming of my first week at Stanford years ago. My father, a man who had gambled away everything we ever owned, had shown up on campus with a group of thugs in tow. He told me that since I was an adult now, it was my responsibility to pay off his $50,000 debt. He warned me that if I didn't pay, he couldn't guarantee what those men would do to me. Right as he was threatening me, Ava Sterling appeared with her family's security detail. She didn't say a word. She just took off a diamond bracelet and tossed it at them, telling them to leave and never come back. My father's eyes lit up with a disgusting greed as he looked at her. "Wow, James, I didn't know you were hanging out with girls like this. I bet she's already wrapped around your finger, isn't she? Not my boy." He even had the nerve to grin at Ava and tell her to take good care of his son because he was looking forward to having grandkids. Ava looked like she wanted to vomit as she stepped away from him. The people around us started laughing, as if the idea of me being with someone like Ava was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. I had never felt more humiliated in my entire life. I hadn't even needed her help. I'd already been recording the whole thing and had my roommate on standby to call the police. I was going to make sure my father went to jail once and for all. But Ava's intervention just gave him exactly what he wanted and made him even greedier. Because of her, he kept coming back to me for more money for an entire year. He stopped threatening to hurt me. Instead, he started thinking of even worse ways to get money. He thought he'd found a permanent meal ticket through me. He kept hounding me, telling me that I should record Ava and use the video to blackmail her family for millions. It took me a year of living in fear before I finally gathered enough evidence to put him behind bars for good. But in everyone else's eyes, I was supposed to be eternally grateful to Ava Sterling. I told myself that if I wasn't grateful, I was just being a jerk. For years, I did everything I could to repay the debt I felt I owed her. I took the same classes as her just to make sure she passed. I did her homework, and I even put her name on my research projects just so she could get the credit. But outside of that, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. That video of her saving me was still all over the internet, with everyone talking about how amazing she was while I was just the pathetic charity case. Her father even used the video for a PR campaign, and the Sterling family's stock prices skyrocketed because of it. I hadn't spoken a single word to her until the day she decided to use me to make Ethan Thorne jealous. She was standing there looking like a literal angel. Her features were perfect, and her lips looked like delicate rose petals. And then she told me she loved me. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I wondered if she got a thrill out of playing with a scholarship kid's heart. I had been looking out for her for years, and this was the first time she'd even looked at me. There was no way she actually had feelings for me. A dark thought started to form in my mind. She had ruined my life once before, so maybe it was time I got a little something back from her. It's not like she was losing anything. I was helping her get Ethan back, which was exactly what she wanted. And it's not like she told me to stop that night. In the end, we were finally even. I'd won the game, and now it was time for me to walk away. The live comments disappeared the moment I put distance between myself and Ava Sterling. It turns out I really was just a side character in their story, but even extras get their moment in the sun. I threw myself into my new life in London. It was challenging, and the workload was intense. I was so stressed out, I thought I was going to lose all my hair before I finished my first semester. I was just leaving the lab when Ava Sterling called me. I tried to ignore it, but she just kept calling. I finally snapped and picked up. "You owe me $50 for international roaming just for this call." "Ava," I said before she could speak. Ava went silent for a second and then hung up. 5 minutes later, a notification popped up showing she'd transferred $50 to my account with a note for the bill. She called back immediately. "Where are you, James?" she demanded. "None of your business," I replied. "You think you can just disappear?" she asked. "I'll find you eventually." "Are you pregnant or something?" I asked. "If so, congratulations. Now, leave me alone." I could hear her gasping in indignation on the other end. "Seriously," I said, "what do you actually want from me?" The line went quiet for so long, I thought she'd hung up. "I just want to see you, James," she said finally. "I want to see how far you've come," I replied. Ava was quiet for a second before snapping. "You are absolutely repulsive." I sighed. "You're getting it wrong. I'm talking about the path you've chosen for yourself. I want to know who you've decided to be. We aren't just born into a role. We become who we are through our choices. I want to see if you'd finally started making your own. I want to know if you were ever going to stand on your own 2 feet. I haven't changed, but you still look down on me. If you want to keep living with your double standards, that's your problem." Ava slammed the phone down again. She tried to call back a few minutes later, but I ignored it and sent her $50 back to her account. I didn't pick up for any of her subsequent calls. 3 months went by in a blur of endless studying, overpriced coffee, and terrible British food. The only bright spot in my life was Anna Reed, who had become a close friend. I was making progress, but I still felt a bit hollow inside. The day Ava Sterling showed up on my doorstep, Anna was in the middle of inviting me over for dinner. Anna had really come into her own since moving to London. She got a new haircut and ditched the glasses, and she looked amazing. Back at Stanford, she'd always tried to be invisible to avoid the drama of the elite social circles. I was about to answer Anna when I saw Ava Sterling standing there, looking like she wanted to murder someone. She looked like she was 1 second away from a complete meltdown. I honestly thought she was going to slap me right then and there. Before I could even say hello, Ava marched over. "You are not dating her," she declared. Anna rolled her eyes. "Miss Sterling, shouldn't you be more worried about what your own boyfriend thinks?" Ava's voice shook. "Ethan and I are done. We broke up." Anna gave a sharp laugh. "2 breakups in 1 year? You're moving through guys pretty fast, aren't you?" Ava lunged forward, and the two of them started screaming at each other. It was a pretty impressive spectacle, though it would have been more enjoyable if I wasn't the reason for it. Ava grabbed Anna's hair and shrieked. "James has been in love with me for 7 years. You don't know him like I do." Anna bit Ava's arm and yelled back. "Are you completely delusional? He only looked at you because he felt sorry for you. I'm the one who actually knows him. Nobody wants your leftovers. James is way too good for someone as shallow as you." When she couldn't win the argument, Ava just started making things up. "James and I never officially broke up. You're just the one trying to get between us." Anna just scoffed. "Hey, James, your crazy ex is back for more." A crowd was starting to gather, so I finally had to step in and pull them apart before things got out of hand. Right as I pulled them apart, Ava managed to land a slap on Anna's cheek. It wasn't a hard hit, but Anna acted like she'd been struck by lightning and stumbled back. I caught her before she could fall, my hands accidentally landing somewhere they shouldn't have. I tried to pull away, but Anna grabbed my hand and held it firmly against her. "I'm so dizzy, James," she whispered. "Don't let me go." I ended up carrying her all the way to the campus clinic. She was grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Ava was left standing on the sidewalk. "James, what about me?" she screamed. I looked back and saw her standing there with a bruised face and tears in her eyes. For a second, I actually felt bad for her. Even with the bruises, she was still breathtakingly beautiful. But then Anna squeezed my hand and directed my attention back to her. "My leg really hurts, James." I looked at Ava and said, "Just go home, Ava. You don't have health insurance here, and we were over a long time ago." Ava stared at me with wide, tearful eyes. "How can you be so cruel? Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just a conquest for you?" I just gave her a small, enigmatic smile. Ava looked like she was about to collapse. I told her to just go. She stood there with tears streaming down her face. "Is it because of her?" she asked, her voice cracking. I shook my head. "No, it's because of you and Ethan Thorne." Ava's eyes widened in shock. It was like I'd just delivered a death sentence. All the energy seemed to drain out of her. She stumbled toward me, her voice desperate. "But I told you, I broke up with him." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. A cab pulled up and I helped Anna inside. We drove off without looking back. Looking through the rear window, I could see Ava Sterling standing alone on the sidewalk until she was just a tiny speck in the distance. The years went by faster than I expected. Ava would occasionally show up in London, and whenever she did, the live comments would start reappearing. "This story has gone completely off the rails. We should just call this the nobody wins for once. He's been a student for 6 years. Who wants to watch this? I want my money back." Ava started showing up at my apartment with homemade breakfast. When she realized I was ignoring her, she convinced her father to make a massive donation to my research department. Honestly, it was getting harder and harder to ignore her. I started agreeing to the occasional dinner with her, mostly just to keep the peace. Ava seemed thrilled just to be near me, her eyes lighting up whenever I spoke. She always looked like she just stepped off a runway, while I was usually in my lab coat and jeans. It was a bizarre dynamic. One night, she got drunk and tried to throw herself at me. I pushed her away as gently as I could, and she broke down in tears. "I thought you said you only wanted me for my body, James. I'm right here. Why won't you take me?" Honestly, my research had left me too exhausted to even think about anything else. But I couldn't exactly tell her that. So I just said, "Because you're tainted, Ava." Ava looked like I'd just punch her in the heart. I hadn't realized how much those words would actually hurt her. After that, she went to extreme lengths to try and win me back. The drama got so intense that the live feed finally cut out for good. Ethan Thorne even flew to London once to tell me to leave Ava alone. Ava had blocked him on everything, but apparently that was somehow my fault. I just laughed and said, "Well, you might have lost Ava Sterling, but at least you've got me. You've officially gained a friend with a PhD." Ethan just glared at me and stormed off. Ava somehow found out about Ethan's visit. Hannah told me that Ethan had lost his spot in his grad program after some scandal broke out. He and his father had apparently been forced to apologize to the Sterlings in person. It was all very dramatic, but I honestly couldn't bring myself to care. Meanwhile, Anna and I were spending more and more time together. I found myself genuinely enjoying her company, and she was every bit as beautiful as Ava Sterling. I graduated that year, and Anna and I officially became a couple. She was exactly what I needed, someone real and grounded, unlike Ava. Ava came to me one last time, her eyes red from crying, asking what Anna had that she didn't. I just looked at her and said, "She knows how to take care of me in ways you never could." I thought that would be the end of it, but Ava was back the very next morning. "Hey, James," she said with a smirk. "Your favorite mistress is here." Years later, Ava Sterling still looks back on that day with regret. She still has nightmares about the moment she said yes to Ethan Thorne while James Miller walked right past her without even a second glance. But that wasn't the whole story. She had stopped loving Ethan long before that day. But the cold indifference in James's eyes had made her feel like her heart was breaking. She had only said yes to Ethan to try and get a reaction out of James. Her life had spiraled out of control from that point on, like she was trapped in a play she never wanted to star in. Even when she was with Ethan, all she could think about was James Miller. Every time she saw him, she wanted to scream and ask him why he didn't seem to care. She wanted to know why he had never fought for her, but she never had the courage to ask. She had even introduced him to Anna just to prove to Ethan that she didn't care. She felt completely torn between her desperate need for James and her commitment to Ethan. She and Ethan Thorne were the golden couple that everyone expected to get married. She tried to tell herself that she was happy, that this was exactly what she'd always wanted. She fought against her feelings until she finally couldn't take it anymore. But by the time she finally admitted the truth, James had already moved on. She realized that all the excuses she'd made were just her way of trying to justify her own mistakes. In another life, she might have been smart enough to choose James from the very beginning. She would have walked with him, helping him carry his takeout and laughing at his jokes. James would have stayed in California for his PhD, and she would have seen him every single day. Her family would have supported his research, and he would have been the one to call her his wife. It would have been perfect, with no drama and no competition. James never looked back. He walked away with total clarity and left only his dignity behind. Since Ava chose to treat human emotions like pawns in a high-stakes game, James's departure was the most graceful way to tear up the script life had tried to write for him. We all spend our lives being judged by the background noise of the world. We often find ourselves forced into the role of a side character in someone else's drama. James proved that the moment you stop trying to force your way into a world where you do not belong, you take away everyone else's power to define your worth. The ultimate clarity in life is seeing through the hollow glitz of high society so you can finally embrace something real. If it were you, would you choose to wait in the shadows of someone else's story? Or would you follow his lead and write your own ending?